Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Graybeard Garage, and today we're going to answer the question of what's in the box. So inside this box is the finest carburetor ever made from the purest form of Chinesium ever. And in this box is a chainsaw, I think. I don't know, maybe. It looks like a chainsaw. Anyway guys, a little bit of background. That is a chainsaw that when I got it was an assembled, fully functional chainsaw. Well, the primer bulb was disintegrated just like almost every other primer bulb that I've ever seen before. So in my efforts to get the thing up and running real quick, I had gone to one of the big box retailers trying to get a primer bulb for it. I went to the big box store that sells this brand, and they had none in stock. So what I did was took the saw apart and in a rush tried to get the thing fixed, didn't have the parts, threw it in a box, threw it in the shed, and now I'm coming back to it because now I need it, so we got to get it up and running. So this is the Echo CS-305. It's kind of a lightweight, almost like a tree climber saw. I have a bunch of trees down on my property that's up in North Florida, and I need that to get up to these trees rather than dragging around my big steel chainsaw with 20-inch bar on it. So this is a little more functional for this type of treetop work. So that's what we're going to be working on today. So stay tuned, and we're going to get into this project. All right, so like I said, what we have here is the Echo CS-305. Again, this is just a small saw, kind of maybe not exactly a climber saw, but something similar. It's a little smaller, easier, maybe a pruning saw. Long story short, I took this thing apart and didn't have all the right supplies to get her back together right away, and so that created a bit of an issue, and I had to order some parts off of Amazon. And of course, I'll share a link to all that in the descriptions below. And so we'll go ahead and we'll start talking about that. So as you can see, I've kind of already torn this thing down quite a bit as it is. And I kind of ran into a question I wasn't sure how to answer here. There's this fuel line right down here, down there, and that runs through the housing back here behind the flywheel, and it connects back in here behind here. So that threw me another issue. I wasn't sure how to get around that. So I did actually go on YouTube and found some guys that had worked on this previously. I'll mention their names below. I honestly don't remember what they are off the top of my head right now. But basically what you do is you take this nut here and you loosen her up just a little bit and take a punch, center up your punch, and you hit it a few times right in here. You'll see it's kind of got a notch out in there. Bang on that a few times, and that actually will loosen up your flywheel. So we can go ahead and take that off now. There you go, just like that, nice and simple. So what that does is actually allows me to get back into here and to rerun this hose down into there. Let's see, where are we? Down into there. There's a nipple, and we need to run a new line from the front through the housing and then down into that nipple. And I believe that's just a vent for the chainsaw's fuel tank. So when I had mentioned getting the flywheel off, this is the punch I used. See if you can see that. And then that punch just goes right down here on this. I leave the nut on, that way it doesn't mushroom this out and ruin it. So anyway, it just takes a couple quick hits with that, and that's how you get that flywheel off. Alright guys, so here is our Amazon special, obviously. So we're going to go ahead and open this up real quick with our super rusty, gross looking Alright guys, so here's our Amazon ordered carb kit, and we're going to go ahead and take a look and see what's in the box. Alright, so give me 1 second here and we'll go ahead and get this thing opened up. Okay, so I'll be honest, I haven't really mastered the whole one-hand razor blade cutting technique, but we'll get there maybe. So inside the packing here, we got a little bit of bubble wrap. We've got our new carburetor, and we got a new spark, a new lightning rod, and we got a multitude of hose. And let's see, we got a new primer bulb, 2 primer bulbs, I'm not sure what that is. Maybe you guys can tell me. And then we've got our new fuel filter. Fuel filter. And check that out. We also got a new air cleaner. And we got a new gasket for the carburetor as well. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get to work on getting this in. I don't know if they really gave us enough hose to replace the one that I had mentioned earlier, which appears to be a vent tube for the tank. So I had some of this stuff laying around from when I had bought a different set for this, and it didn't quite work out. So we're going to go ahead and use that, and then we'll get started in here on the reassembly process. Alright, so when I went to try and attach the hose or the line to that nipple, it fell down in there. So I think I know what that part's going to be. Alright, so the piece that we had seen that I wasn't quite sure about, which was this, is actually the replacement for this vent tube air breather. So we're going to go ahead and put this rubber gasket on here, attach our hose, run it back through the housing, and we'll get started. Alright, so after a little bit of internal debate, I decided to go ahead and reuse the original line. It's still pliable, still flexible, it's not split or cracked anywhere, and it was a perfect fit through the housing, so I decided to go ahead and just leave that the way it is. Rerouted the line back behind here, and then we pushed the little breather filter down into the housing. Alright, so now that we've got the vent tube back in, we put the flywheel back on. Keep in mind that the shaft is keyed, so you need to make sure you get your flywheel over the key correctly. And then you'll want to tighten down your bolt again. And part of being able to do that is, again, putting in a piston stop, which I just used some nylon rope, stuck it down there in the spark plug port. And now we're just going to go ahead and tighten this thing down real quick. Alright, so now we've got our flywheel back on, and I think we're going to go ahead and put the cover on, back on here, the pull cord cover, and then we'll go ahead and get to work on the carburetor. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take our cover here, the pull cord. We're just going to give this thing a real quick cleaning, and we'll be right back. Alright, so we went ahead and got our cover all cleaned off. Definitely looks a lot better than it did. So now, pretty simple reassembly. Just stick it on there, make sure everything lines up right, put your screws back in, then we'll have our cover done, and we'll move on to the front of the machine. Alright, so the cover has 4 screws, 2 in the bottom and then 2 at the top. We've done the 2 over here already, so now we're just going to go ahead and tighten up the last 2 here real quick. Alright, there's 1, 2, awesome. Alright, so now our plate's back on, and I tested the pull cord, that's good to go. And now my friends, we're going to work in here. Alright, so give me 1 minute. I'm going to set the tripod up. I think it'll be easier to see everything that way, and then we'll go and get everything set up. Okay, so one of the first things we want to do here is remove the old fuel line that runs to the tank. And I don't know if you can see it or not down in there, but it's like a curly Q, like a little pig's tail with a filter on it. So we're gonna go ahead and remove that. And this is actually a fairly simple process. I'll just take my long, thin needle nose pliers, wedge that up. You can see it's kind of got that curl in it, like I said, like kind of like a little pig's tail. And then we just wiggle this thing out. And there you go, it just pops right out. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and replace that with a new line and filter, and we'll show you that in just a second. Okay, so here's the old and here's the new. It's just a straight piece, which really isn't a big deal. We'll just leave a little extra length down here to go into the tank, and we'll add our new filter, which looks exactly like the old one, and then we'll go ahead and get that reinstalled right now. So again, we just want to go ahead and take this, and we're gonna put it in through the opening here into our fuel tank, and we'll just run this over, and then come over here, and we'll grab it with our needle nose, maybe. All right, I don't know if you guys can see that in there or not. Oops. All right, let's go ahead. There we go. Now you can see the line inside the tank, and we want to go ahead and get that pulled through here, and then we'll just figure out what our length needs to be so it touches the bottom of the tank. Alright, so we're going to go ahead now and get everything all set up, and then we'll install it. Alright, so we now have the new fuel line all set up. We're going to just go ahead and put that in our tank. We'll just put it in this way. Should fit right in. Okay, run that in. Stick our little grommet back in there, and there we go. Good as new. Now we're just going to go ahead and get carb set up and ready to go in, and that'll be the next piece. Alright, so had to come back to this the next day, because unfortunately it seems like every afternoon here in Florida we get some sort of torrential downpour, and I'm working outside, and so lightning and metal structures, probably not a good idea. So let's go ahead and get back to this carburetor going back into this machine. I'm going to flip you guys around and we'll take a look. Alright guys, so what we've done here is we put this hose on our other nipple, and this is going to go into our primer bulb right here, and it's going to connect to the longer nipple. And so what we'll do is take our clip here, which is this, and we're going to go ahead and slide this back in. That lined up. Okay, so that's in, and then we're going to go ahead and put our new primer bulb in. I'm going to put the large nipple towards the back, and you just press that in until it clicks like that, and there you go. So the next thing we're going to want to do is connect our tube here to the large nipple, and obviously we're going to need to trim off a little here because this is too long. So give me 1 second, we'll trim that off to size. Alright, so we've gone ahead and trimmed that up to size, and now we're going to take this, go behind our little choke lever here, and we're going to find the large nipple, which is hanging down, and we're going to stab this into it. Alright. Alright, and as you can see, we now have our fuel line connected. So the next step here is going to be getting the carburetor in. That's going to be our next step. So I've laid the two carburetors out together. This is our original carburetor, and this is our replacement carburetor. And in here you'll see there are some differences. This does not have the throttle stop like the new one does. So we're going to take the old factory throttle stop, which you can see is right here, and we're going to take that out. But to get that out, we got to go back up here and take our top plate off again to pull that out. Alright guys, so different angle here. So we're going to go ahead and get this installed now. What you're going to want to do is hook your throttle cable to the back side here. And we'll go ahead and get that one in. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and get everything else assembled, including our choke as well. Alright, so now we have our throttle cable installed. We're going to go ahead and now get our gasket behind our carburetor. And then we're going to take our mounting screws along with our choke plate, and we're going to stick those in here as well. And be sure not to lose your washers, because that is extremely important that you not lose those, because they are hard to find, to say the least. Alright guys, so I may have to do some of this off camera, but we're going to connect throttle cable to the carburetor, and we're going to get our choke plate connected to this choke hook here, or the choke lever. And it might be easier for me to do that off camera, or I'll set her up on tripod here, and I'll do the best I can to show what I can. Alright guys, so what I've done here is I've put our choke plate back in, put our screws through, put our gasket on. I'm going to connect the throttle cable here to this eye, which goes towards the back of the machine. We're going to hook that up, and then we're going to get everything tightened down. I'm going to do the best I can here to show you while we're doing this. And bear with me guys. It might take a little bit of extra time here to get this right. Alright, so we have our throttle cable in, and now we're going to go ahead and slide this thing in behind these fuel lines if we can. I've already lost the gasket, so that's not working. Let's try another strategy here. Alright, so maybe what we'll do is we'll start from the other side first and go in this way. Go in like this, behind it, and then we'll go from there. Alright guys, so you can see we've got our carburetor in. What we're going to do now is we're going to get this choke plate connected here, and then the key here is this little washer. We need to make sure it gets centered up in between the choke plate and the carb, and that way it'll be able to lock in, and that way you can adjust your choke out correctly. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and try and get that done right now. So I'm going to connect this. We're going to come in from behind with this and try and catch. Oh, maybe. Alright, so I'm trying to move this choke plate around a little bit here, see if we can catch the hook on our choke control. Alright guys, so I went ahead and did a little bit of this off camera. So you'll see here on the carb are two mounting bolts. What I did to get this choke plate back on is I took these back off, took this assembly off as well, and then I put the choke plate on, and then I put the washer in between, set the washer into the choke plate, and then put the screw and this retainer back on, and that seemed to work out best. I've seen other people do the whole thing at once. It just was fighting me and I couldn't get it that way, so that's how I went ahead and did this. As you can see now, we've got our choke plate fully engaged. All right, and so the next thing we're going to do is connect our small fuel line up to our small nipple here in our primer bulb. Okay guys, so we have taken our small fuel line here and we've attached that to the small nipple on the carburetor, and we're going to go ahead and just cut this to length to attach to our primer bulb now. So what we've done is we cut our tube here short, and we've got it attached to our primer bulb. So now we're going to reassemble the air cleaner, and the next thing we'll do is start putting our chain back on. We'll go ahead and get that started. Alright, so I forgot we have one additional line to hook up. That's the fuel line from the tank. Pretty important, so we went ahead and got that connected up to the carburetor. Next step, we're going to close all this up, get our chain back on, and try and fire up. Alright, so we've got our air cleaner on. Pretty easy to figure out which way it goes, since it's got recesses for those to latch into here, into the front of the machine. And just go ahead and press all that in place. Alright, and then we put our air filter cover on. And so we're going to go ahead and get that on. So our saw is reassembled and ready to run, so we're going to go out and give that a test. Also picked up a couple new bar nuts so that we don't have the bar fly off under operation. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take this outside and fire her up. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and get our primer bulb primed up here. Give her a couple of pushes. Turn our saw on. Take our choke, set our choke, and we're going to lock our throttle in and give this thing a pull. Awesome. Alright, choke off. Alright, so there's another successful repair done to a chainsaw that had been literally sitting for about 5 years completely untouched. So if you put your mind to it, there's nothing you can't do. And so thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Graybeard Garage. See you guys.